Welcome back to the back of the pack in the world of running behind. Once again, I'm Joey Metzger, your slow-running pacer on another epic adventure. Today, I'm joined by Tony Gillham. 5 years ago, Tony had a dream. It took over 5 arduous days and over 257 miles across the Arizona desert, but in May 2025, Tony made his dream reality. And to help tell the story, we're joined by one of Tony's crew, pacer, and pretty well-known podcast host, Mr. Ben Mead. This promises to be a fun one. But please do forgive the audio quality at times. After all, Tony was calling from an oil rig somewhere off the coast of Alaska. And if you see any imaginary green army men along the way, don't leave them hanging. Let's get this show on the trail. First off, how are you doing physically? How are you feeling 8 days out?
Physically, I'm doing pretty good. Here we are, what is today? Sunday, so a little less than a week actually since the finish. I think I finished Monday morning. I still have some numbness in my feet, and then tired. Just bush tired. I get off work I work 12 hours a day. I go to work at 6, get off at 6, and I live where I work, so it's pretty much just come upstairs, go to bed, and then at lunch break I shove some food down my throat and come up here and I lay in bed and get 15-minute nap. Just getting caught up on sleep. I think that's the worst. Still some niggles in my feet, but just little pains here and there, but hopefully the feeling comes back from pretty soon. It's kind of like they're still asleep. My toes, especially on my left foot, still feel like they're asleep. I had very little in the way of blisters, luckily, so they're not doing too bad. But yeah, just some numbness and just overall fatigue. But muscular, I'd love to go for a run. I think tomorrow my coach has actually got me for a short run.
Wow. All right. So for my audience, I have a really special guest. Today, I'm joined by Tony Gillham, who 8 days ago finished, 15 days ago, you towed the line at the Cocodona 250, a 250-mile race across the Arizona desert. And some of you listening know very well what this race is. Some of you might not, but 8 days ago, you finished that thing. It's crazy. Now, I have a little background on how I know you. I met you from season 1, episode 17, 2023, Ben Mead's Chasing Cutoffs podcast. How did Ben just reach out to you? How did you end up on that thing?
So for Ben, when he had his podcast, I think there was maybe a post made on Facebook about it, and I just posted up, "Hey, this is great that you're doing a podcast for the Back of the Packers." Yeah. And he sent me a message, said, "Hey, are you one of us? Do you want to be on the show?" I said, "Yeah, why not?" And at that time, I'd only done a couple of ultras, and finished back third of the pack. I don't think I've ever graced the DFL podium, but I've never been a front of the pack runner. So I did the podcast with Ben, and rest is history.
Tony, you are a perfect back of the packer. You represent us very well. So that's how I met you. I was listening to that, and then I started following you on Strava and, giving you kudos, watching some of your races, and then I think you might have watched some of my movies on my YouTube channel, and then you started listening to my podcast, and I said, I saw you doing Cocodona. I said, oh my God, you're doing Cocodona. You want to be on a podcast? And you said, sure. So, Tony, I'm not going to get into, we're going to get into a little bit of your background and your history. I don't want to spend all the time on that. I want to spend a lot of time talking about Cocodona. We'll do just a tiny little bit. I'm going to have a link to Ben's podcast, and I'm going to recommend people right now, hit pause, go listen to that episode with Ben. You'll get all of the background and detail on Tony, and we'll just touch on a little bit of it here. So So, when I listened to that podcast, so you were athletic as a kid, but when did you start running? That was like after you were in the Army, and it was after the Army, right? When you started actually doing running?
Oh, don't do that to me. I was a Marine, buddy.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I was in the
Marines. Oh
Marine Corps,
my
not the Army,
God.
not the Army.
Tony, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You were in the Marines.
Ouch, ouch, below
Sorry,
the
sorry,
belt.
sorry. I'm sorry.
So yeah, I was in the Marines. So I did 5 years in the Marine Corps,
Uh,
and after I got out of the Marines, I swore that I was done running. I hated running. It wasn't fun. It was miserable. It was painful, terrible, and after I got out, I decided that that was the end of my running days. So fast forward a couple of years, and I started to get really out of shape. Putting on a few extra pounds and just getting winded going for my second bowl of ice cream. I just had a couple young kids and was kind of struggling to keep up with them, and I didn't want to be the dad that sat on a park bench while the kids played. So I decided to start getting into shape, and then through a weird roundabout way, I kind of got talked into doing a 50-mile ultra, and I was nowhere near prepared to do that ultra. I think my total training volume before I ran that ultra over like a 3 or 4 month period was about 130 miles, and now I'm doing that in just a couple of weeks. But I did it. It hurt. It was terrible. 10 days later, I was finally able to walk right again, and it was a great time. It was amazing. So I signed up for another one, did another one a couple months later, and that was the Black Canyon
okay.
60K, and had a blast at that one. That one hurt just as bad, and
Yeah.
I thought if I'm going to do this, I need to learn how to do it correctly, and maybe try to get a little bit better at it. So I ended up getting a coach, and he kind of taught me how to run to where it was enjoyable. And basically, the Marine Corps way was to run until you puke, and then the next day run 5 seconds faster and 100 yards farther before you puke. And so that's where it just made it not fun. But slowing down and actually getting to do like the zone 2 type running, I started to enjoy it, and now it's just gotten out of hand. And so, and now I just find myself going farther and farther and
Yeah.
farther, and seeing what's next over the next hill.
That's what happens with these things. We go a certain distance. We're like, well, I got to go the next distance. So we'll get to that because you just did 250
Yep.
miles. So at the end here, I'm going to find out what's next for you. But so that was your first Air Viper race. As two was the Black Canyon 60K, and was that what year was that?
I think that was 4 years ago
Okay.
now. I'd have to think back to what year. So I've done the 60K and I've done the 100K twice.
And
And then the Cocodona is
okay.
my fourth Air Viper race.
Now you live up in Sterling, Alaska, which is south of Anchorage, right?
hmm Yeah,
You
the drive from Anchorage is about 125 miles south of Anchorage.
Okay. So the Air Viper race, I know this, but tell the audience why the tie to Arizona. What's special about Arizona to you?
So I was born in Arizona. Lived the first couple of years of my life there, and then I have family that lives in the Scottsdale area. My grandmother still lives in El Mirage,
Okay.
which is just on the outskirts of Phoenix. And so I went to school in Arizona as well. Right out of high school, I went down to Universal Technical Institute and graduated there. So I do have a
Okay.
little bit of ties and a little bit of love for the desert down there. Still don't like the heat, but I do like Arizona.
Yeah.
And then actually from Alaska, it's a pretty quick and cheap uh, trip. From Anchorage, they have a direct flight that goes right into Phoenix. So it's about a 5.5 hour trip to go to
Oh
Phoenix.
wow.
And as far as price goes to fly anywhere else in the rest of the lesser 48, Phoenix is pretty cheap to get down to.
Oh nice. Wow. Okay. So you do the Black Canyon 60K, and then I remember following on Strava, you did the 100K a couple of times, right? You tried to do the 100K, the Black Canyon 100K a couple of times.
I did the 100K two 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I did the 100K. I finished that the first time, and then actually like 11 miles into it, I hit a rock wrong and just messed up my foot, and pretty much for the next 52 miles limped it out. And I did finish, but I knew I could go back and do better. So I trained real hard, went back, and I must have gotten a bug on the airplane on the way down, and
Oh no.
I had a fever over 100 degrees at the start line, and I figured, well, you know, I spent the money to go down there, and I was going to toe the line, so I towed the line, and you know, went as far as I could, and ended up pulling the plug at Bumblebee. So I went 20 miles. You know, I felt good about that, and there was no regrets about pulling the pin on that. I just wasn't physically in any shape to be able to do it. Unfortunately, because you know, 4 days later I was back up and ready to go again, but just
Yeah.
something took me down at the start line.
Okay. That was Tony. Was that last year?
Yes, yeah, that was
2024.
last. That was last 24 February.
Okay. All right. And so, well, let's kind of get around to it. So you do that last year. You don't finish it. At what point you didn't do it this year because you did the 200 and the Cocodona 250? At what point did you decide to do the Cocodona 250? Was it right after Black Canyon last year? Was it when did you decide to do the 250? Or was it, Ben Mead did it as we know, and we could talk about that a little bit, did it last year. Was it following Ben? Is that when you decided to do it? When did you decide?
So I decided to do the Cocodona 250 after the video, the inaugural year came out,
Okay.
and I decided then that I wanted to do that race. It was long, it looked hard, it looked miserable, and it looked like just a world of fun. So I'd been, since that came out, basically it's been a 5 year journey to get to the start line. And so I started on that, and uh, I ran Black Canyon 60K, or the Black Canyon 100K, and then I had the Denali 135, sorry, right after that. Same
What?
thing, lightning hit twice, and right before I hit the start line on that, I ended up with the 100-degree temperature
Oh my
again.
god.
And that was going to be my confidence builder. So I had planned to sign up for this year's Cocodona. I signed up a little earlier than I wanted to because it was selling out real fast. They dropped the number of runners that they had, and I seen it was selling out super quick after watching the live stream last year. So the plan was to run the 135 as a confidence builder. Figure if I can make it through the 135, I can do the 250.
Okay.
Uh, well, before that, before the 135 actually took place, I'd been looking real close at the numbers, and they were filling up, and filling up. And so I called my wife, and I said it's almost full. And she goes, "Well, if you're going to do it, you better sign up." And so I sat there, and I think there were 17 spots open. And I was sitting here in my room where I'm sitting now. So I hit purchase button,
Yep.
and
Sorry, your line had cut out there. You hit the purchase button for the Cocodona 250, and then you started getting a sick stomach, thinking, "What the heck have you done?"
yeah, I hit the purchase button, and it was like being punched in the gut. I thought, oh my gosh, what did I just do? You know, that's 3 times farther than anything I've ever done. And so after that, I ran the Resurrection 50 mile, and that went absolutely great. And uh, everything went perfect. And for me, I finished that race, so that was a confidence builder there. Then I took a few months off, just kind of let my body heal up from the summer of racing and a lot of running and stuff. And got a coach and started the Cocodona workup.
So let me ask you about your coach because I've seen her post on some of your Strava stuff. Is that Rachel? Is that her name?
Oh, Rachel Lemke is my coach,
Okay.
and she's a good ultra runner as well. So I had a coach that I worked with for a couple of years. He definitely helped me a lot. Unfortunately, it was some different things that I wasn't liking in coaching. Got to another coach, and what a difference! What a huge difference it made. I was setting PRs on all of my long runs. I
Wow.
think set my PR on a training run on a 50K training run by over an hour,
Yeah.
and my marathon PR by over 50 minutes. And those were just in training runs where I wasn't pushing hard.
Wow.
So it was definitely worth the switch. And it was just a different approach to training and to coaching.
What was her approach, Tony? What's the basis of her approach? Is she pushing you like in terms of heart rate or zones or mileage, or what's kind of the gist of her approach that's really made you so successful?
So with my other coach, he was a triathlete coach, and they do just a ton of zone two.
Okay.
Never really getting out of zone two. That's all we did was just zone two for like 3 straight years. Occasionally we'd do a little bit of quicker running, but that was it. It was just all zone two. And I plateaued pretty quickly to where I wasn't getting any faster. I assumed that it was just my age. I'm 40 something years old now, and just kind of assumed that was it, and I wasn't going to get any faster. Her approach was more of the typical ultra running coach. You do your long runs, you do speed work, and it was just a whole workup uh, over a couple of months' time of building mileage. Uh, working on speed, getting a leg turnover faster, stuff like that. Doing strides. I think strides actually really helped
Okay.
get my mileage faster or get my pace faster.
Wow.
And yeah, it was completely different. My body really took to it real fast, and I just shot out of the hole as far as I had been held back by only doing zone two.
And is this coaching virtual or is she local to you? Or I'm not sure if I know where she lives.
She lives in Montana now, so it's a virtual coaching.
Okay.
But anything anymore, we can sit there and talk on the phone. Once a month, we set up a talk on the phone before the race. We talk video call and went over racing strategy, and then we get together once a month, discuss how training is going. If I needed to change stuff, I work a strange schedule, and she's worked around my schedule, which has been really nice.
Yeah.
Very positive, around my crazy work life, and it's just been a real breath of fresh air to work with her, and just a different approach to training.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, just watching your stuff on Strava, I was like, "Holy crap, you're shot out of a cannon." And you mentioned the coach, and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, definitely. This is a great coach. She's really." And when you signed up with her, did she know you'd already signed up for Cocodona? So this is, hey, everything I'm doing is geared towards Cocodona, or was she just coaching you just generally, and then eventually you told her about Cocodona, or did she know right away?
so I had gotten back with my old coach, and I sat down, had coffee with him, and we talked about training. And the first couple of weeks of training, I wasn't real happy about,
Got it.
uh, and it wasn't, to me, it wasn't right for me. And so I reached out to her, and my plan was to still stay with my other coach until Codona, because I started with him.
Yeah.
But I talked to her, told her I'm working with a coach already. We're going to go through Cocodona and then moving over to another coach afterwards. And she never rushed me off the phone. She was always super easy to approach and talk to. She never pushed me into anything. And so we said our goodbyes, and I mulled it over for about a week. And then I said, I think I need to make the change. And so I went ahead, I called her, and then made the phone call to my other coach, which was tough because it's kind of
Yeah.
breaking up with somebody. You've been with them
Yeah.
for a couple of years,
Sure.
but it just wasn't working out for me anymore. And I tried to talk to him and get some things changed. He's busy, so it seemed like a lot of times I was an afterthought,
Yeah.
and so never once felt that way with Rachel.
Awesome. So you've got her. She's got you training. What kind of mileage is she having you put in? Is she tracking her mileage per week?
Tracking mileage. So some of my runs were time
Okay.
based, some were heart rate based, and then some of them were distance based. My longest run was a 50K, 31, 32 miles. And my peak weeks, I think my peak weeks were 61, 62 miles, right in
Okay.
there. So not a ton, um, but the workouts that I was doing, I was also doing some strength work, which which really helped.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot about these runners that are doing 100, 120-mile weeks. Well, when you're slow, 60-mile week is a long time.
It's the same amount of hours
And
for me.
so if I'm doing a 100-mile week, that's 20 hours of training.
Yeah.
There's no way that
Yeah.
I can do that amount of training and work a 12-hour day. And so that was one thing that she worked with my schedule. And most of my weeks were, with strength training, 10 to 12 hours on my peak weeks of running. And, we actually did a gradual build. I think we started out in about 8 hours, and then we actually did a taper off at the end.
Okay. Had she ever
30 to 50 miles, and I think I peaked out 60.
Okay. Had she ever done Cocodona, or has she? I'm assuming she's done some longer 100-mile races or something like that.
Yeah, she's done some longer races. She's never done Cocodona.
Okay.
She actually paced Tara Dower in her second place finish at Black Canyon this year.
What?
So she is an accomplished ultra
Oh my
runner,
gosh,
which is really good. That
yeah.
She's part of the sport and knows what we're doing.
Yeah.
Which is real nice. So
Okay. Did she? Now, are you still working on the oil rigs, or is that still your job these days?
Yep, I'm sitting out here right now.
That's what I thought. So are you running on a treadmill then when you're out on the job, or you're running around the helicopter deck? What are you doing for your training when you're out there?
I've tried to run the helideck, but it's so small you end up just leaned over and with sore ankles and pretty short distance. Our top deck is so cluttered with drill stuff and work stuff that you can't really run back and forth, and you're constantly hopping over skid rails, so that's not really possible. So it's all treadmill. Okay. And then at home when it's winter time and 30 below, I don't like to run outside when it's 30 below. So I'm at 70% of my running is treadmill running.
Okay. Well, that's what I do. So you're saying there's hope for me. Just doing mostly treadmill running. That's good to know.
Yep.
So you're doing strength training. The other question I had for you, Tony, was did she have you do any heat training? I mean, everybody, you think of Cocodona, you look at the videos, that especially that first, I don't know, 70 miles, everybody's always that first day. They're just boiling hot. And of course, this year was a little bit different. Did you do any heat training?
We did not do any heat training. We did talk about it.
Okay.
Some of the heat training I did was just kind of close myself in on the treadmill and turn the heat up in the room. Okay. Probably should have in hindsight, but we got lucky and heat stroke was problems this year. It was hypothermia. So
yeah, I know. We'll get to that. That's crazy. All right. So you've got the coach, you're all trained, you're getting your stuff together, you're lining up your crew. Who's all, as you're lining this up, who's all in your crew? We know Ben Mead is one of them, correct?
Yep. As soon as I signed up, Ben Mead reached out. I did it, and everything around Cocodona was just amazing. I want to go back in some capacity. He says, so I'm going to either go back and crew, pace, or volunteer. Yeah. And I said, well, I'm signed up. I could use a pacer, and so I'd love for you to come down and pace. And this time I'd never met Ben in person. You just talked to him on the phone and through Facebook and whatnot. My wife is a crew chief, which usually she crew chiefs me, and my 11 and 13-year-old were going to be pacers for me, and which they usually jump in for a bit here and there. And then I had a friend up here from Alaska that wasn't to come down and pace, and unfortunately she ended up really sick.
Okay.
Beforehand, a couple months beforehand, it took her out, so she wasn't actually going to be able to make it. So there, when I went down, it was just me and my wife and 2 little kids and Ben. So that was the whole crew.
I love it. So your crew is your wife's a crew chief, your 2 daughters are your pacers, and Ben, and that's your crew.
Yep.
Oh man, that's awesome. What's that?
Wow, so that's it.
Yeah, that's great. I saw Ben was sending me some pictures, and we were texting the whole week. And you and I think I had sent you some texts, and I knew you were busy. But there was an RV down there. Did you guys rent an RV, or where did the RV come from?
Yes, we went down a week beforehand to turn it into a family vacation. So part of my taper was just to drive around like the Griswold in an RV and see Arizona. Went up the Grand Canyon for a day. Went
Okay.
over to, I think we ended up over to Lake Mead in Nevada,
Yeah.
and just cruised around Arizona for a week. And when I signed up on the instructions or the rules for the crew, it said no RVs over 25 feet. So we ended up getting this little 22-foot motorhome for me, my wife, and two girls. And so we rented that. So that was small enough where we get into parking spots and that they could drive it around where it wasn't too big to get kicked out of the aid stations. And so that was our mobile aid station.
Okay. So you get everything ready. How, I'm always curious. How many pairs of shoes did you bring? How many pairs of socks? What is it? What do you bring to do a 250-mile race? What does that look like, Tony? Is it like two extra bags you're checking with all this stuff? What the hell does that look like?
I had so they had all the required gear, which actually isn't that much. And I run with the Solomon ADV-12 running vest, which is like the Harry Potter dresser. I mean, you just keep stuffing stuff in there and it fits. It doesn't
It's
matter
bigger
how
on
much
the
stuff
inside.
you
It's
stuff
like
in
the
that
TARDIS.
vest, it fits. It's just
Yeah.
huge. Yeah, I could have thrown one of my
Yeah.
kids in there, I think.
Mm.
So I had my required gear. I think brought down 7 or 8 pairs of socks, 4 or 5 pairs of shorts, and I had a small carry-on size suitcase with just gear for running the race.
Okay.
2 sets of poles in case I broke one. Extra water bottles for my vest. Extra everything just in case because I can't really drive home and go pick up what I
Yeah.
need. Yeah, and the jackets and the warm clothes and the rain gear and all that good stuff. So,
Okay.
uh,
All right. All right, so I want to get into the race now. I mean, this is the heart of it. So you're down there in Arizona. You fly down with the wife and the two kids. You rent an RV. You're doing your taper in Arizona, seeing the Grand Canyon. You meet up with Ben. Does he must have showed up a day or two before the race? You must have met up with him at some point, right?
yeah, so me and Ben kept in touch. The day before the race at the expo, Ben had driven down from Flagstaff. He stayed with a buddy up in Flagstaff, and I met him just right there at the expo. We kind of sat down, hashed out a little bit of the game plan, and then I was kicked out of the conversation, and it was just him and my wife that hashed out another game plan,
Okay.
and they set up a separate or texting chain that I was not privy to. So I guess when I got too delirious, I didn't have to try to keep up with that. And
Okay.
so we had a conversation there, and it's volunteering at the first aid station, Cottonwood Creek, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, Cottonwood Creek, which
Okay.
is a bit of a drive to get up there. So he was going to go up there and stay the night there. Did the expo, ran into some legends at the expo, which was super cool.
Yeah.
Courtney was there. Of course, she's got a whole 50 people around her, so I
Yeah.
didn't really wait for a picture. But got to talk to Cameron Haynes,
Yep.
big bow hunter, I know him as well. So it was really cool to meet him.
Yeah.
Um, uh, the speed goat Carl Meltzer was there. He was crewing for
Just
Jesse Haynes.
yeah.
So I was standing there. Look at this guy. That's Carl Meltzer. He wasn't signed up to run. What are you doing here? So of course I went and talked to him.
Yeah.
Jeff Browning was there. Really super cool guys to
Yeah.
talk to. All of them were really super
Yeah.
cool talking. So my
I'm a
my oldest
huge Jeff.
daughter was there with me.
Okay. I'm a huge Jeff Browning fan. He's like, dude's in his 50s and he's like at the top of his game. I'm like, dang, I love seeing that. I love that. Yeah.
Oh, he's still crushing it. So yeah, kind of the
Yeah.
same thing. As I'm getting old, I'm looking at the older people. I don't want to
Yeah.
idolize a 20-year-old guy because I'm not 20 anymore.
No.
So these
No.
older guys, something for me to look up to.
Yeah. All right. So you're at the expo, you meet up with Ben. You guys come up with a game plan. He meets with your wife. They come up with a different game plan. And of course, and I'll have a link in this. Ben Ben Mead has his own story from 2024 when he ran the Cocodona, and it's quite the story. We're here to talk about you today, but I'll have a link to that podcast with that was with his buddy Matthias, right? With from the original single track, but um, that's an interesting story. But
Yep,
so
you
he's
should
done it. He
definitely listen
knows.
to that if you haven't got a chance to.
Oh, yeah, I remember. And it's funny, Tony, because last year when Ben ran it, I didn't know that he was running it. And literally, it was you on Strava. You posted in his club that Ben was running it. And I was like, what the hell? I had no idea. And then, of course, I waited and his podcast came out. And yeah, it was quite the story. So you start the race, 5 a.m. You've got, before you see your crew, it's 37 miles to Crown King before you see anybody, right?
Yep, you got to go all the way. The first, yeah, Crown King is what, the third, fourth aid station.
Yeah.
You go through two water stations, Cottonwood Gulch, and Lane Mountain. No, not Lane Mountain. What is it?
I've got all the stops
Lane
up here.
Mountain.
You go through Cottonwood Creek, Lane Mountain, which is mile 32. Cottonwood Creek is mile 7. And then you get to Crown King at mile 37. So how does how does the first go? Is it like, we always hear about, and I was on the treadmill today watching one of Jamil's videos, and I watched the Dan Green video today on the treadmill. Those first 37 miles, everybody says is so hard. You've got no crew. You've got to basically have all your water with, and it's hot as heck. How was it for you, Tony, that first 37 miles?
So the first 37 miles, the first 10 miles went really quick. And, I seen Ben at mile 7. He said he was volunteering there at Cottonwood Gulch. Kind of got held up a little bit for a while, but it was all right. I wasn't wanting to run too hard anyways. And then made it through the first water station at mile 10. After mile 10 is when you start your climb.
Okay.
I think we only had like maybe 1,000-foot elevation gain up until mile 10. After that, everything slows down. My game plan was just to march it out, but it never got hot. I was waiting for it to get hot, but the weather was supposed to stay cool for a couple of days. I think 2 days at the time was all it was calling for cooler weather, and then get hot again. I could see up the trail up in front of us that they were getting rained on. Luckily, being in the back, we weren't getting rained on yet. It was kind of just a slow march north until we got up to Lane Mountain. Once we got to Lane Mountain, it was actually cold. We'd been rained on a bit by then. I had to stop for a bit because nobody carried any warm weather gear because it's supposed to be 100 degrees on that first section course. I carried 6.5 liters of water. I think the requirement was only 4. I was expecting it to be super hot, so I was carrying a whole bunch of extra water that I actually never even used. I hit Lane Mountain and actually had to stop by the heater and warm up because I was getting really cold. My hands were really cold. Luckily I'm a little thicker blooded from being up here in Alaska, but there was a couple of people that were pretty rough shape there at Lane Mountain. They were bundled up under sleeping bags and just shivering pretty hard. Once I left Lane Mountain, the sun came out just enough to where it warmed me up to where I could get into Crown King. I hit Crown King a little bit before dark. I think at that time I was pretty close to where I wanted to be as far as time went. I think I was only about 30 minutes behind where I wanted to be. And but had it been hot, you could have added 2 hours to my time just with the heat because it was just relentless uphill. Everywhere you looked, the trail was always up, and didn't matter how much you climbed, it seemed like there was always more. But got up to Crown King, ran to Crown King. Ben met me there.
Hey,
I did get chilled there, so I got bundled up quite a bit.
Tony, speaking of, so you get to Crown King, mile 37. You meet your crew the first time. You see Ben. For my audience, we have a surprise. We have your crew pacer, Mr. Ben Mead himself, on the podcast. Ben, how are you?
Good, man. What's happening? How are we doing?
We're good. We just got to mile 37. Nice. We went through his coaching with Rachel, talked about his crew. how the hell he got to this point where he's running in the Arizona desert for 250 miles, and so yeah, the topic of Ben Mead has come up many times. So Ben, how did you reach out to him early on when you saw he was doing it, or did he reach? He said you reached out to him, right?
Here's how my memory goes. So, Tony was on my podcast as a guest long before I ran Cocodona. And I think even then we talked about how Cocodona was my dream race and he was talking about how it was his dream race. So we kind of connected on it there. And then I ran the race last year, or not, I guess technically 2 years ago now. And Tony was stoked on my race and kept in touch. And when I was home for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days after running in 2024, I was texting with Tony. I'm like, bro, this thing is going to sell out, man. If you want to do this, you need to get in now because I'm seeing this trending towards selling out. And yeah, so that's how we did it. And then I told him, hey, if you get in there, this is like a year before the race, right? I'm like, if you get in, man, I'm there. I will be pacing you. So that's how I remember it going down.
Got it. So, and we were talking about you a little bit beforehand, Ben. You'd come up. I'm telling my audience right now, hit pause, go listen to Chasing Cutoffs, or you can listen to Matthias's the original single track podcast and listen to Ben's interview of your 2024 Cocodona 250. That is, I don't want to spoil it. I want people to go listen to it, but it is quite the amazing adventure. And we will probably reference it a little bit. I know today is Tony's day, but it'll probably come up from time to time as we talk with Tony.
Today is Tony's day indeed. Yes, indeed.
It is Tony's day. It's the year of Tony. So you're on the crew. Tony said at the expo, like, you met up with them, you and Tony came up with the plan, and then you and Casey came up with your own plan.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is so interesting. Like Cocodona, the community around it is so incredible that a guy from Alaska and a guy from Washington State can do one podcast, like record for 90 minutes together, stay in touch via text for a year, and then meet in person, IRL, for the first time at the start line of Cocodona and be like, okay, man, let's put a plan together. How are we going to get you over the finish line? Yeah, so what I was doing there with respect to the true crew chief, which is Casey, she gets all the plaudits for being the crew chief. She put the whole thing together. But what I was doing there was the same thing that was done for me, in which we had a group text from my crew and pacers where they would pipe in occasionally and encourage me, or I would reach out to them and be like, hey, what pace do I need to be going to beat this cutoff? And they would reach back out to me. But then there was a separate text thread, which was the logistics text thread, which is the one that they all had. And I highly recommend this if you have crew and pacers, that said things like, can someone give me a ride? Because I'm parking my car at X aid station and I need a ride back. Or Ben looks horrible. He's going to need feet and food when he gets in. Or, Ben isn't eating, or whatever the thing is, right? Because you don't want that showing up in your runner's phone all the time. And so
right.
We told Tony to go in the RV. And Casey and I hatched a plan. Okay, here's what we're going to do. These are the aid stations. This is how we're going to do it. And I just kind of gave my best wisdom, my 1-year-old one-try wisdom at that point. And we talked about myself and some of the other potential pacers that were going to join, and we'll get into that. But yeah, that's what went down.
Awesome. So Tony, you go 37 miles, you get to Crown King, you see your wife, your kids, Ben there. How are you feeling at that point? And then Ben, the follow-up is, how was he looking at that point at mile 37?
Well, I'll just quickly say he was looking great. Like he was doing awesome, other than the fact that he said he was cold and he was wet and he needed warm clothes. But Tony, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, so coming into Crown King, I felt great. Even after I think we'd done about 10,000 foot climbing at that point, my legs felt great. The training I'd done up to that point, and in the months leading up to the race, was spot on. Even at the end of the race, my feet were what hurt. My body never actually gave way. So I ran into Crown King. I think Ben actually came out and met me a little way down the road. Ben and my oldest daughter, if I remember right. Of course, some
Yep.
things are still a little fuzzy. They came out, ran me into Crown King, came in and got some dry clothes on. I was still a little bit wet, warmed up, fed. Um, I was able to eat solid food. I don't remember exactly what I ate, but I do remember eating solid food and filling up. Probably eating more than I should have. I was pretty stuffed when I left there, but I knew I needed it. Spent a little bit of time getting my feet worked on. I taped my feet up the night before, so they were good and the KT tape was good and stuck on there. So I checked out my feet. I had a little blistering on the back of my heels, but nothing underneath. I changed up the way my shoes were tied, and that actually fixed the problem for the rest of the race. And
I will say,
up.
Tony, that at this point, this was the first time that you laid out and asked to have your calves worked on. So this will come back to haunt us later on. But you did have your calves.
That early?
Yes, you did lay out and have Casey work on your calves at Crown King.
Tony, wow. I got a text.
I didn't remember that.
I got a text about mile 20 in a video that says he needs sleep and his left calf is blowing up. It's gone. But you actually look pretty damn good in that video. No, at mile 120, I got that text. I was like, holy God, how are you going to get through another 130 miles? Okay, so you guys meet up Crown King. You're checking everything out, and then you leave. And then the next place you guys get to see him is Whiskey Row, and that's like, isn't that like 40 miles down the road? Like mile 75 or something, Whiskey Row in Prescott?
Yeah, mile 77 is Whiskey Row. Okay. So that's another 40 miles to get to my next aid station where I could actually see crew.
So what is that stretch like?
Night sucked.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got my notes up here. So you leave Crown King in the evening. You get there about 6:30. You're heading out, and you don't get to Whiskey Row until the next day in the afternoon, right? That's what I've got in my notes.
Probably like 20 hours later or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's going on in that stretch of 40 miles, Tony?
So between Crown King and Rash Creek, it was, more climbing. It seemed like we just never stopped climbing for that first, until you got to Whiskey Row. It seemed like if the trail went up, if there was two trails and one went up, one went down, we were going up. Getting into Arasta Creek, it was raining. It was getting muddy. So I got about a 10-minute nap at Arasta Creek. Even Arasta Creek, we went to Camp Kippa. Camp Kippa was just a muddy slog. You're on a service road, and then you turn onto a single track road. And being in the back of the pack, you've got, at that time, we still had probably 250 runners that were still running. And I think I was running around the middle of the pack at that time. For a little while, I was the middle of the pack, and then there was a whole big slug of people that DNF'd. That put me from the middle right to the back. But Camp Kippa was just this horrible, sloppy, muddy beaver slide going up the side of this mountain. And you couldn't get out of it. It was about thigh deep, but it was right in the tree, so you couldn't get out of it. And you couldn't walk on the sides because it was too steep and too slick. So you're just right down in there in the mud and the slop. And it doesn't rain down there, so when it does, it turns into this clay that sticks to you. And you're walking, and pretty soon your super light shoes weigh about 7 pounds apiece, and it's not even worth kicking the mud off because your next step it'll stick to there again. So made up through Arasta Creek and Camp Kippa, Camp Wonkochik. It was pouring down rain going through there, cold. Wearing your rain gear, just basically on the border of hypothermia. I think this, if I remember right, and I got into Camp Wonkochik, the sun had started coming back up again. I teamed up with a runner there, going up to Camp Kippa. We were both hating life pretty good. I hadn't hit a low. I just was tired of the mud. and not realizing that we still had 2 days left of the mud, and just a real slimy nastiness. So got to Camp Wamatochik, got some food there, and then Whiskey Row, it did dry out a little bit. So we came into Whiskey Row and got into Whiskey Row dry, which was nice. And then Whiskey Row, I met up with some friends, met up with Ben, and got some food, got a nap, got some sleep there at Whiskey Row, and then I think I stepped out from there with my 11-year-old daughter. It was my first pacer from Whiskey Row.
Okay. I was going to ask who is your
And
first
then
pacer? Your 11-year-old is pacing you. That's just crazy to me that you're 11. I mean, I don't have kids, but I mean that's crazy. Your 11 and 13-year-old are facing you, but man,
Okay,
it worked.
I have to jump in here, man, because
Yeah.
this is one of the craziest things that happened at this race. And for Tony, it's just like this is just a Wednesday afternoon in the Alaskan tundra. But for all onlookers, the idea that this 11-year-old was going to jump in for 13 plus miles in the middle of the night was just like insane. And I was like, okay, man, I hope it works out.
I mean, right?
Tony's kids, as it turns out, are incredible athletes, and they're tough as nails. And he knows that better than anybody. I also want to say, like, seeing Tony come in, and that gap in between from the perspective of the crew, that 40-mile gap between Whiskey Row and Prescott, that felt like the last time we had like true downtime. True, like you can get a full night's sleep, he's not coming anytime soon, that kind of a thing. Once we left Whiskey Row, all bets were off on sleep and like keeping up with Tony, because it was kind of madness from there on. But yeah, I do want to put the spotlight on Tony's 11-year-old, because that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, Tony, you mention it like it's no big deal, but to those of us, those people listening, and to Ben who was there and me hearing about it, I'm like, my God, your 11 and 13-year-olds paced you at Cocodona. This is not just, running around on the pavement too. This is crazy in the middle of the night. They are amazing to did what they did. That is just incredible. So,
and then just throw in the fact that it's a deluge of rain, pouring down rain overnight. Yeah, Tony, share a little bit about that.
So yeah, I want to hear, because you were texting me, Tony. I think it was shortly after that you were caught in like a torrential downpour. You went into a public restroom or something to get out of it.
Yeah, so leaving Whiskey Row, the weather was decent leaving Whiskey Row. I had my 11-year-old with me, and I felt good, had a good nap. Probably actually the longest sleep that I had during the race. I had to do it again. I probably would have slept as long there, but anyway.
I want to say that was like 40 minutes. Does that sound right, Tony?
We were only.
What's that, Ben?
I want to say it was like 40 minutes.
I think it was like 3 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay, 3 hours. Gotcha.
Of sleep?
I think the Whiskey Row, I think that one was 3 hours.
I tracked you in there for 4 hours, Tony. So, whatever. Yeah, probably 3 hours sleep.
Yeah, I think I had 3 hours of sleep there, and then I had my feet worked on there, had my feet taped up again. So I spent more time there than I would if I do this when I do this race again. I'll probably spend less time there, get a shorter sleep, and we try to make it up on the back end, get longer sleep later in the road. But we left Whiskey Row, me and my 11-year-old. She's super high spirits, and she's been chomping at the bit to go anyways. And we made it about a mile or two, and then the skies opened up, and you could almost swim through the air. It was pouring down rain. Just absolutely pouring. Once you turn into the Dells, you're in it. You're not going to have any kind of way to get out of the rain. So, my daughter, she is 11 years old, and I'm telling her, I said, you're going to get cold, and she says, I'm all right, Dad. Let's just push through. And we'd been there before, so I said, there's a bathroom along the side of the trail. We could kind of go through a parking lot right on the edge of Watson Lake. And I said, let's go to the bathroom. We'll get warmed up, have some trash bags. And because we had rain jackets, I just had shorts on because I figured it would be plenty warm enough. Well, now we got this super cold rain at 40 degrees. And her, same thing, she's got her pants on. And so we actually go in and we hide out in the bathroom for a little bit. And they had the hand dryer in there. So we wring our clothes out and we dried our shorts and bottoms underneath these hand dryers to try and get our bottoms dry a little bit so that we could take off. Made some hula skirts out of trash bags and then proceeded on through the Dells for the next 10 miles in just this torrential downpour. And every place that water could run through there was water knee deep going through it. Now you're following these little white dots where they spray painted the rocks. And actually, before the race this year, they marked it very well. They actually had chemicals out there so you could very easily see the trail. But there was places where the rocks had been painted where it was knee deep under the water. And so we're wading through thigh deep water through this, through these little washes and stuff I think you're only going through the Dells for a short 2 or 3 miles before you hit another, like a 2-track road or a bike path. And so, yeah, all the way through to Iron King.
When you get out of the Dells there, it feels like there's like a 5-mile section after the Dells before Iron King that is basically just like you said, like a flat bike path or sidewalk or something, but feels like nothing on either side of you in the middle of the night. You're just like going flat forever.
Yeah, for my audience following along, this is day 2. This is Tuesday. You've been doing this over 36 hours now, and you're not even halfway through the race. This is so crazy.
We're not a third of the way through.
No! This is crazy. All right.
The whole way, you're on this, I think it's an old, like a train track, like a mining cart, built up like that, where it's built up in the middle and it drops off quite a bit. And same thing, just muddy, sticky mud. So for miles, we're walking in this sticky, rocky, crappy mud after just getting torrentially poured on. So we're soaking wet. Brianna, the trooper, she's trugging right along through the middle of the night. It put us behind a couple hours where I wanted to be because we ended up hiding in the bathroom trying to dry some stuff out. So we didn't know. So I was worried about her getting hypothermic going through there. And so I wanted to make sure she was okay. Had it been just me, I probably forged and went on through and probably ended up hypothermic. But
guys, hold on. Hold on 1 second. Keep talking. I got to let the dog out. I'll be right back. Hold on.
We still got 180 miles to go.
We were just rolling to Iron King, and Tony was going to swap pacers.
Okay, who's pacing you at Iron King then?
So we pull into Iron King, and my oldest daughter, my 13-year-old, was going to jump in as pacing duty at Iron King. Okay. So yeah, she'd been having some stomach issues, so I wanted to see how she would do. Well, there's a short section there from Iron King to Fane Ranch, just to make sure that she was going to be feeling up to it because the next bit of trail was kind of rough. So she jumped in the middle of the night. I don't remember what time I rolled into Iron King, but Cheyenne jumps in with me and she just takes over pacing duties. I don't know if Ben talked to her or what, but she put on a little march. She was out in front of me, dragging me along and, keeping good conversation and just going. Before you get into, into Fane Ranch, you go through some cow pastures, and you see all the videos. You're going through these flats, these cow pastures, and it's all dry. And we've been getting rained on so much, so it's just more of that mud, just that stuff that it's soul sucking. I mean, it pulls the life out of you right through your feet. I think you go through a mile or two of that, and we get into Fane Ranch. And you see on the videos of Fane Ranch, it's always this really cool aid station.
Satisfy, right?
And I think at Fane Ranch, I was actually, Satisfy. Well, it had the tent collapse, and they had to cut open the tent because of the amount of water that the loose. So all of the couches were wet. Everything had plastic trash bags on it. The people there were great, but these comfortable chairs weren't exactly super comfortable at the time. And just going through that mud, I hit my first low spot, and just felt horrible. I, uh, I was amazed that I went 90 something miles before actually hitting a low spot. I expected it to come in earlier because even on a 50 miler, I hit a low spot 30 miles in. So I'd hit I'm tired of the mud. I'm tired of climbing. I'm a little bit tired, a little bit cold, but I hadn't hit this sucks yet.
Yeah.
What am I doing? At Fain Ranch was dark. It was real dark. So I spent a little bit of time there at Fain Ranch. Cheyenne was there trying to pick spirits up, and Casey was there working on my feet a little bit, and Ben was there picking up spirits. And
Oh no. Let's be clear. Let's be clear, Tony. This entire night, from Whiskey Row until the sun rose the next day, Ben was asleep. I was not there, so just so you are aware, I was not.
I thought you were there.
I was not at Fain Ranch.
Okay.
Nope.
It was
I
a
not at Iron
hallucination.
King.
We'll get to
Okay.
that.
It was just your family there, man.
The hallucinations are coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was
got that in my
sound
notes.
asleep in the back of my rig
Like I
that
said-
whole time.
Oh, okay. Well, like I said, a lot of this is still fuzzy. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're there clearing it up. Trying to get out of a funk, knowing that it would pass. You know that in these ultras, you're going to have low spots, you're going to have high spots, and I was just in a low spot and had to get through it. Unfortunately, I think maybe because I hadn't hit one earlier, I think it hit twice as hard because it was just all of it at one time. But it was there. Fought through that. Me and Cheyenne, we left Fain Ranch and headed up to Mingus Mountain after that.
So she's
Man,
pacing
it was
you
just-
all the way up to Mingus Mountain, right?
Yep. She ended up doing a 20-mile stretch
Wow.
up to Mingus Mountain.
13,
and
folks. 13-year-old.
Don't
She's
remember
20-mile
how
stretch up the mountain. Yep.
Yeah.
I was playing with Legos when I was 13. Christ.
Yeah, and she was a trooper, man. She was out in front. She was pacing. She's pulling me along, keep my spirits up, and for miles. I don't know how many miles until you actually start the climb up to Mingus Mountain, which isn't very long. A few miles. You're going through more and more cow pasture, and it was just mud, and we're getting poured on. It's raining. The mud, you can't run because you're slipping all over the place. Your feet weigh a ton because you got all this mud stuck to you. My feet were starting to hurt by then, and so it was a pretty long, dark spot for me because after we left Fain Ranch, the sun came up, and now we were into day 3, and the sun came up, I feel better, but just that mud, just that soul-sucking, horrible mud that you couldn't get away from. And the worst part about that whole section is you're walking on this trail, and it didn't matter which side of the trail you got on. If you went in, tried to go into the grass or anything, it was just that sticky mud. You're walking 20 feet parallel to a hardball road, to a paved road that would have made walking 1,000 times easier, but you're following and paying the attention to the rules, following this stupid little trail through this hellish mud, looking 20 feet away at a paved road, looking at runners that are out for their morning run, running up and down this road, and you're in the middle of hell on this sloppy, nasty, muddy, just horribleness. So we finally got to the climb up to Mingus Mountain. It completely socked in, pouring rain. Couldn't see nothing. So this beautiful view you're supposed to get from the top of Mingus Mountain, we didn't get. I had like 30-foot visibility at the top of Mingus.
Okay, let's pause right there.
But I did get in there.
You're skipping over.
I think Mingus is where I got a massage, isn't it?
Yes. Okay, so here's where I will insert my part of the story. Because I was going to pick up Tony at Mingus for the first time at the top of the mountain. And logistically speaking, there was a lot of conversation between myself and Casey, the crew chief, about Tony's 13-year-old and whether she was going to be able to do that section after the original 5 miles. Was she going to want to do it? Was she going to be feeling well enough to do it? I had offered to meet Tony at Fain and to run him up and over the mountain down into Jerome, which would have been roughly 20 some miles, or I said I could meet him at the top of Mingus and run him into Dead Horse. So we ultimately decided that that's what I would do. So I actually got up to Mingus quite a bit, a couple of hours before Tony arrived, after the sun came up, and waited for him there and had a chance to interact with a lot of runners as they were coming in. And then Tony came in, and what I remember, Tony, is we sat you down. The first thing we did was we just sat you down and gave you a ton of food. That was step one. And then step two was the massage.
That was lasagna.
Yeah, that was the lasagna. Which is like the most kick-ass lasagna of all time.
Remember the lasagna.
And then I said, hey, go get on that table and get a massage. And I don't know, I felt like, God love them. Those are some wonderful volunteers, but something went wrong on that massage table.
She hit something wrong in my ankle, and nothing against her. She was doing a great job, but something went wrong.
Yeah, because your calf was not the same after that moment.
Wow, that's when it happened.
I mean, it was tight. It was tight there. I do remember complaining about it there, that it was tight. And what I had was my calves were tight, but it felt like I had a baseball just into my right or into my left calf. Was cramped up pretty bad. She worked on it, and she said it was actually caused by the other side of my calf, which was causing the right side of my left calf to tighten up. So she worked on it a bit. Didn't get it out, and then so we hung out at Mingus Mountain for a little bit, changed clothes. The sun came out for a minute or two. That was kind of nice. Mm-hmm. And then it sucked back in. And then me and Ben headed downhill. Ben picked me up.
So I took you to that big vista. Yeah, I took you to that big, amazing view and vista on top of Mingus Mountain, and we were totally socked in the clouds. And I'm like, well, here's why you have to come back, buddy, because this is the best view in the whole race right here. Oh, no. And you're going to have to come back and see this one.
So that's where you pick up Ben as a pacer for the first time.
You couldn't see 20 feet. Yep, picked up Ben, and going down Mingus Mountain into Gillham is this, I think it's like a 4,000-foot elevation drop through these bouldery, rocky trails with a lot more mud. And Ben says, we're going to get down there at a certain time. Part of this is runnable, part of it's not. I'm going to tell you my life story and keep you moving. And he did just that. He made me run when I didn't want to. And we made some really good time getting in. I think we were an hour ahead of what we were looking to get into Gillham. Made great time, which was really nice because I was able to get a little bit of rest in Gillham. And
so
we came to Gillham.
I ultimately ran with Tony for 3 segments, and they all 3 had very different characteristics in terms of Ben's pacing style. So this was the tough love segment where I was like, hey, man, you still got legs. There are some runnable sections. And I kept saying things like, we're just going to take what the trail gives us. And every time we get a runnable section, I'm going to make you run. And that's what I did. And there's one part, man, where I felt so bad. I still feel bad about this. But you were complaining about your calf, and I got my pole out. I don't know if you remember this. And I had you stand still, and I started using that pole to try to rub out that knot on your calf. And you're like screaming in pain. I'm like, okay, this is not working. So, but I will say, just comparing year to year, the Mingus descent is gnarly and it's difficult because it is so rocky and it's so steep and there's just endless switchbacks. But when you add mud to that, and you're basically ice skating down this hill, and the only thing that's there to stop you are giant rocks that you're slamming your toes into over and over and over, it was kind of a miserable experience. But yes, I also told Tony my entire life story to keep him entertained on the way to Gillham.
Oh my God.
And it worked great. Actually coming down the hill into Gillham, I think, is where I had my first hallucinations. Very minor.
That's right.
I'm seeing Nemo under a rock. He was looking out at me, and then all the rocks were smiling at me as I would go by. All the rocks on the ground, which was a lot of them, were smiling at me. And then, it was pretty rough, pretty tired coming into Gillham. Honestly, don't remember you left out of Jerome with me or not.
Yeah, that's good. That's interesting. Yeah, because you were totally out of it. So as we come into Jerome, there is this insane rainbow, and I got multiple
Yeah.
pictures of Tony running into Jerome with a rainbow over him. He probably didn't notice it at all. And once
Yeah.
we hit the pavement, I'm like, dude, you have to run. We are running down. I knew his running legs were not going to last, so I'm like, let's just
Yeah.
run while we can.
Yeah.
And so I got him running it down into the aid station. As soon as we got in there, it started dumping rain. But fortunately, the RV was there and Tony was able to hop in. I had an extra segment to go because I did not leave you there, Jerome, Tony. I took you all the way to Dead Horse. So
Okay.
we managed to stay in the aid station just long enough for the rain to stop. And then we headed out to Dead Horse from there.
So that's another 8
Okay.
miles or something like that, Ben. So
Yeah, exactly. It's another 8 miles. There's a miserable
okay.
little descent coming out of Jerome on this private property that is like incredibly steep, straight down. It's filled with like
Okay, I remember that.
glass shards and metal implements and just all this random rusty stuff, and it's like just so bad and so hard on your feet after you've come down that Mingus descent.
Oh my god. Yeah, that was the first video you had sent
I
me.
do remember that now.
He was coming into Jerome, and you're like, he's crushing it, but his calf is gone. And then saw the video, and I was like, well, at least looks like it stopped raining. Well, it hadn't stopped raining yet, but it was maybe getting close to stopping raining at that point.
It was getting close. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So you take him all the way to the Dead Horse, mile 133. I I remember, so my buddies Eric and Mario, like they are just like me. We're just like, we're following night and day. We're following your tracker, Tony, and they're all like, "Oh, how close is he?" And I think Deer. So you take him to Dead Horse. Who takes you from Dead Horse to Deer Pass, or is that solo?
My memory tells me that Dead Horse to Deer Pass was a pacerless section, if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
Tony, do you remember if you had a pacer there?
No, I think that's where Brian jumped
Oh,
in.
you're right. That is where
That's where
Brian
Brian jumped in.
Yeah. Shout out to Brian
Yep.
Booth. Brian was one of my
He paced me
pacers
through the
last
night
year.
here.
Okay,
And Brian picked him up there and took him
Okay.
through. Yeah.
okay. I have in my notes you get into the
Yeah.
Deer Pass at 3:53. This is on 5/8. We're on day what, number 3 4? We're on May 8th now.
Okay.
You get in there at 3:53 a.m. The cutoff is 4:45. This is the first time I'm like, all right, you're within an hour and a half of cutoff. You are officially chasing cutoffs. Could you tell that, Tony? Were your crew telling you that like, okay, we're getting a little close to the cutoffs, or what are you thinking when you get into Deer Pass with Brian?
So one of the only things mentally that actually stayed with me was my ability to do trail math. All the way until the last finish line, I was able to do trail math. So I knew that Deer Pass was going to be close. Yeah, I was looking at the distances and the segments of the whole race, and I had figured out what my mile time needed to be between aid stations. So going into Deer Pass, I had actually banked a little bit of time, but that section between Dead Horse to Deer Pass was actually a pretty quick mile. So I knew I was going to be losing minutes per mile there. But once I got through Deer Pass, I think it went to a 30-minute mile or a 29-minute mile to make the cutoffs into Sedona. So what I did was I knew I was going to be losing time. I don't think I ever really felt like I chased cutoffs. I felt like I managed them very well. But I knew it was going to be a little bit tighter, but I expected that. So what I did was I actually rolled through Deer Pass real quick, because as soon as I got through there, I knew I had plenty of time to make it into Sedona. So I was getting pretty wrecked by then. I hit Deer Pass. You know, I told Brian, thank you very much. And then I left, and then I went a quarter mile up the trail and took a dirt nap. Because all I had to do was just get through Deer Pass, and then I had lots of time. And then into Sedona, the bad thing when I rolled through their pass, I do remember uh, I didn't grab any warm weather gear. So I was still wearing my stuff through the night for cold weather. We had been in 3 days of cold weather, so I hadn't needed any warm weather gear. As soon as the sun came up that day, and it got freaking hot. And the only thing I had was my insulated top. And so I looked like Chewbacca running out through the desert there. I did have some sunscreen on me, so I didn't completely burn, but I just took my shirt off and everything, and I headed off through the desert. So I'm sure I scared some of the locals.
This
And
was a
by
this was a
running around with my shirt on,
surprising for me when we met you at Sedona. The sun is up. I mean, it's a bright, shiny day, right? And here comes Tony running up the trail shirtless, and I was like, "Whoa! I don't know what happened over this last segment, but something's going on here." I did not expect that.
So you get to Sedona. You get to Sedona about 11 a.m., a little before 11 a.m. This is 72, 77 hours, whatever it is, 79 hours in. And Ben, you had texted me. You were taking them from Sedona to Foxborough, right? You had planned. That's why you got some sleep.
Yeah. So I had gotten plenty of sleep, and I recall this being probably your second biggest low point. Tony, you were not feeling good, and you were not. I want to make a comment about this trail math situation. So I know just from my own experience that I can't do trail math when I'm super tired. I was very impressed with Tony, but he was really insistent. Every time we got into an aid station, he wanted to pull out the spreadsheets and the calculator, and I was like, dude, put food in your mouth and stop talking and stop looking at these spreadsheets. But he was actually really good at it. Like, he could still do all the calculations. But I remember Sedona in particular, we weren't going to let him sleep, and we really wanted to get him out of there within a reasonable amount of time. And so we got him into a chair, and Casey and I started working on his feet. And then once we got his feet taken care of, there was multiple times there where you had so many things you wanted to say, and I just wanted you to eat. So I'm just like, Tony, you have to stop talking and you have to start eating, because these are your few opportunities to get like real solid food in you that isn't like a gel or whatever you're carrying on you, right? So we got him to eat. We got him to stand up. I distinctly remember, you probably don't remember this, Tony, because you're like swaying as you're standing up. But I remember putting sunscreen all over your face. I don't know if you remember that part, but I was the sunscreen guy after that. And then, we left together from there.
Yeah, you get into Sedona, you're only there 40 minutes. You're not there that long, because there again, I show that you left there about a half hour before the cutoff. You left there at 11:30. The cutoff was noon. So you guys are headed out, and
I think we were pushing Sedona a little, but I think that next section we had 30 or 32 minutes per mile after Sedona. So I was pretty confident we were going to bank some time going up from Sedona into Foxborough.
So, and this is where we had to do the famous hangover.
This is what
trail.
I want to talk about, the hangover trail. Everybody's been talking about it. Ben, before you joined, I was telling Tony I was watching some videos today on the treadmill. I watched the Dan Green one and one of Jamil's from this year. But that hangover trail, is it literally like, it's like the Sedona trails where you're scrambling over just solid rock, right? What the hell is that thing?
How do you remember it, Tony?
I remember the hangover trail pretty good. I do remember leaving and while we were getting up to the hangover to Slick Rock, I do remember telling Ben I was falling asleep on my feet and falling asleep while we were moving. I told Ben, I said, I'm falling asleep moving. I need you to watch me so I don't fall off this cliff. And Hangover Trail is a real steep trail, but it was slick. You had really good traction on it. What was really bad about it was my ankles and my feet hurt. They were starting to swell up real bad by this time. And you go around this mountain to down and go back up. It's like, why did we do this? This was a waste of a trip. The view up there was absolutely. I remember the view. The view was absolutely gorgeous. and hallucinating with the lizard, the little green and yellow lizard, was actually real.
That is a real
You
lizard,
don't
man.
expect to see colorful lizards in the middle of the desert.
It was really, really cool lizard. So here's my memory of getting him up and over this thing. So we leave Sedona, we go, down toward this hangover. But before you get there, it's just some just really beautiful classic Sedona trails, just absolutely gorgeous. There was a ton of freshly bloomed flowers of all colors because it had rained. So it was really, really beautiful. I kept running ahead of Tony and taking lots of pictures of the flowers. We did spot this incredible lizard that was quite large and colorful. That was really cool. I do remember, Tony, that you were like a gazelle, it felt like, going up Hangover. Like you just had no issues with it at all. And I was just pretending that I'm not afraid of heights because I'm totally afraid of heights. So
Yeah.
I was just like acting like it was nothing, but you just went right up it. And there definitely were other runners that were like kind of stuck in place in fear because they were afraid of falling off the rock because they're so exhausted at that point, right? And then I do also remember, Tony, when you were telling me, like, why the heck are they making us go up and over this mountain and down and back again? And it's totally contrived. And what is all this stuff? I'm like, man, this is one of the most beautiful trails you will ever be on in your life. Let's try and enjoy it while we're here. But to your point, yes, there is no flat place to put your foot. Like every time you're traveling on slick rock, you're always like on a slant of some kind, which is very uncomfortable if your ankles are already thrashed.
This Hangover Trail was new this year, right? That was not there last year when you did it, Ben?
No,
right?
no. Yeah.
Why did they put it in there? Was it because of like the spotted owl or they just wanted
My
to
presumption, is that they rerouted through the traditional Sedona location due to permitting issues of some kind. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
The spotted owl, and then there was a desert rose or something like that, some kind of flower that caused some issues.
So you get him over at Hangover. You sent me a photo. You took a little nap after a hangover. You took a little dirt nap. Tony took a dirt nap. And then you get to Foxborough Ben, you must have pushed him, or he must have just been moving like a gazelle. I don't know if you remember this. Because you got there Tony. Pretty early to Foxborough.
Yeah, once we left that slick rock area, it was just a climb, an endless climb up onto top to try to get on top of the Cocodona Plateau. And we just like pushed hard up this climb, just endlessly. It felt like it went on forever. It was totally exposed and really hot. It was like 80 degrees and like no shade anywhere.
Yeah, I remember going up that and feeling good going up that. I do remember when we left Sedona that I told running was at. And I was in a lot of trouble with my calf at that point. I told Ben, I said, running is out. And I was just worried about it getting bad enough. Let's just not get it bad. But going up that last climb, we were moving really good. Is Sedona where I actually had to come apart of my calf?
Yes, just as we were leaving. No, just as we were leaving the Sedona aid station, you fell apart. That was your dark time. And I'm like, I remember telling you, like, hey, we're on pavement and we're going downhill. Let's just test it out. Let's try to run here. And you're like, it ain't happening, dude. I am not running.
Okay.
But yeah, going up onto the Cocodona, I thought really good. A lady there at aid station said, "Oh, it's all downhill to the next aid station." I think it was gradually uphill. So she.
So, okay, you get to Foxborough. You guys take a little nap. You get I'm sure you get everything worked on. And then is that next section to Munns Park? Is that a solo section, Tony, where you're just by yourself?
Yeah, that was a 16-mile pacerless section there.
I was worried about that. I was like, okay, Ben was pushing you and you got there pretty early. And I thought, okay, now you're by yourself again. How did that section go?
From there, it was actually all dirt road, all the way into Munns Park. All kept expecting to hit a trail, and we didn't. And I was moving really good, and then sleeping on my feet. Fell over in the ditch. It's amazing how much 10 to 15 minutes will get you back up and moving again. And then after I woke up, I had a little bit of reception. I told my wife, I said, "Can you talk to me for a few minutes?" Then we ended up losing reception with kept moving, and I finally I would see people up ahead. I was gaining on them, and I said, "Well, I don't want to catch people in the," and so I didn't want to slow down on the cutoff time. And so finally, I seen a headlight up ahead of me, and I wasn't gaining the same way. So I actually did run, and I did run a little bit, and I caught up with the guy, and we teaming up together and making it into months together. My wife had put a post out on one of the Cocodona group Facebook sites looking for a pacer. Random lady from where was she from? Flagstaff.
Yeah.
She said, "Yeah, I'll come in and pace."
What?
So I believe the guy's name was Dave that I'd gone into the park with. Told him, "Hey, my wife hooked up a pacer. If you want to leave with us, we'll take off together. I'm going to get a short nap at Munns, and then we can all leave as a group." She paced us from Munns into
Kelly Canyon, right?
No, she paced all the way to Tut Hill.
All the way to Tut Hill. Okay.
Yeah. So Kelly Canyon, I stopped in, grabbed some food. They had these burrito, like a chicken nugget burrito with avocado. Was some changing some weather because it was starting to get warm again.
Kelly Canyon, dangerous. Dangerous. There's a campfire there.
So
yeah.
Tony Ben was texting me. He's like, "I don't know if you're texting or talking to Tony, but if you do, tell him don't sit down. Don't sit down."
Not at Kelly Canyon. That is not the place to sit, man.
The only time I sat down, I did sit in Kelly Canyon for about 1 minute just to take my pants off and back on. But I did take your advice. The sun was coming up, so I was actually feeling pretty good by that time. And once the sun come up, I felt very much of the time. And pushed on through Kelly Canyon. I think it's just a short, 6 miles or something like that, 8 miles into Fort Tut Hill. That was the next no pacer section through there. Said goodbye to Tracy. It was hot, really hot. Ended up teaming up with a couple of guys. I remember seeing this really nice shady spot there for 15 minutes, and got it and started moving again. Ended up passing the guy, and he ended up catching up with me, and he said, "Hey, you mind if we team up together? Otherwise I'm going to have to take another dirt nap." I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And ended up catching up with another gentleman who was completely 100% delirious. He had his phone out, and he's got his phone out, and he's looking at the map on his phone, and he's standing on the trail looking at a trail marker with an arrow saying, "Go left." And he looked up at me and wish I could remember the guy's name with me. He looked at me and the gentleman with me. He says, "Do you know where the trail is?" He says, "I've been wandering all over here and I can't find the trail. And I don't know where it's at." And he was you could tell he was asleep on his feet. So the three of us ended up making a death march into Walnut Canyon. And getting into Walnut Canyon there. I believe Walnut Canyon, I think I was at Walnut Canyon. And we got into there, and then I didn't realize Walnut Canyon until this year was where you told your family, "Bye, I'll see you at the finish line."
Yeah. Yeah. So Walnut Canyon is mile 226. You get there, you have 30 miles to go. And I was texting with Ben. I'm like, "Ben, who's pacing him from here to the end?" Ben, you replied back. You said his daughter's going to pace him from Walnut to Wildcat. You're going to take him from there to the finish. And I was, I was watching the live stream when I could. I'm like, dude, it's different than last year. Like going up Eldon, not that, it's hard, but coming down Eldon is a nightmare.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So first I want to talk about, Walnut to Wildcat, Tony, your daughter paces you again, and you guys kicked ass. I was like, Ben, my God, he's making up time. Like, she must have really pushed you, your daughter, from Walnut to Wildcat, huh?
Diane absolutely crushed it through there. I mean, she got me moving. I don't know how, but she motivated me to get through that section. It was a pretty fat section of the race. But she really got on top of Coconino Plateau. It was really flat. Um, I I thought there would be, I knew there'd be some up and down. It's a lot flatter than I thought it would be. So it was really flat until you went up Eldon. But that 6-7 miles, we
Yeah.
and we got in. I think we got in an hour. I think it was an hour faster than we had planned just in that 7 mile section.
Yeah.
And we just hauled butt through there. So when we got through there, it felt good. I was wanting to go. I'm like, we're almost done. And Ben's like, chill out. You got plenty of time. Let's get some food.
I really wanted you to have some of those Pete's meats, man. That chicken was
That was
incredible.
good. That was really good. And I look forward to Pete's Meats forever, and I completely forgot about it.
And I'm like, you need to eat this. This is so good.
So that's Wildcat is where Pete's Meats was, right?
Yeah, Pete's Meats was at Wildcat. I had a chance to meet Pete while he was actually smoking and barbecuing out there. So that was really cool. I got out there a couple hours early while I was waiting. So I just stuffed myself full of Pete's Meats while I was waiting for Tony to come in.
Of course you did. So Ben, and go ahead, Tony.
So we had some good food there at Wildcat. I told Cheyenne thank you, and me and Ben stepped off earlier than I thought we would after I had a little bit of a break there. I don't think I took a nap there, but I had a little bit of a break. Casey would rub my feet. She was a champ, man. She'd rub my feet between each one. My feet had swelled up so much that they just barely fit inside my shoes. So if anybody is ever going to run this race, buy shoes 2 times bigger. I always wear shoes bigger than what I actually wear because my feet do swell through an ultra. But the amount that they swell through 250 miles was a full 2 sizes too big. Hallucinations.
Yeah,
This is when it got crazy.
The last mile, I was seeing a lot of hallucinations with my daughter, but I wasn't really saying much. I would tell her a little bit here and there because she's, both my daughters knew the hallucinations were going to come up this race. So once I got to 50 miles, that was one of their questions. Do you see the thing yet?
Oh God.
I shared a little bit with Cheyenne. When Ben picked me up, the hallucinations were so bad that
were they bad, Tony, or were they
he wanted
good?
to know what I was seeing. So I couldn't look at anything, and it didn't become something else. And so it got so bad. He was sending them to my wife in text mode, and I remember a lot of them. I was seeing dinosaurs. I was seeing green army men that are holding a hand out for Ben to high five them, and he just left them hanging. He'd walk around by.
Okay, I'd like to point out a few highlights here because yes, I want to say, Tony, I had such a hard time not laughing my head off because I told Tony, tell me everything you see. And like literally every 10 seconds, he would say something else. And I sent every single thing he said to his wife in a text message for the sake of posterity because it was so funny. And I am
now the 11-inch Kobe Bryant was pretty cool.
Yep. So at one
wait
point,
a minute, the Kobe Bryant.
At one point he says, Ben, I see a miniature NBA player. And I thought that was the funniest thing I've ever heard. I'm like, okay, wait, tell me more about that. And he said, it's an 11-inch white Kobe Bryant. I don't know what else to tell you, man.
Oh, my God.
Some of the other highlights were Megalodon Tooth, outboard engine. At one point, he yells the word halibut, and then he stops in the middle of the trail, and he gets out his pole, and he's trying to, like, poke the fish and stuff. But then I think the funniest thing ever was there was a couple of runners sleeping on the side of the trail, and we run by, and Tony just yells out, "Homeless people!" And like, bro, those aren't homeless people, dude.
Oh,
Those are real racers. Those are
oh my
actual
God.
runners.
Oh my God. Oh,
I
crazy.
started asking if the people I was seeing were real.
Oh. So this is all happening. This is up and over Eldon where most of this is happening,
This is
right?
all happening on the up, and the up was so different this year. It was this
Yeah.
long, meandering, endless. You could call it a switchback, but I mean, it's like the worst switchback of all time because it just went forever in one direction. Then you would turn and go forever in the next direction. I don't know who designed this trail, but it was so ponderous, and it was not steep. It was kind of rolling, and
Yeah.
you just very, very gradually got up to the top of Eldon, taking
Okay.
this route.
And it's like a 15-mile section, and you hardly gain any elevation. As far as going up Eldon and being that far into it, the last little bit, last half a mile maybe, was hard. 10,000 foot elevation, 9,000 foot elevation. I flatlander. I couldn't breathe up there.
Oh
You
yeah,
were making weird noises, and I was trying to just breathe.
he was in bad
Um,
shape toward the
but
top.
Oh God.
but it's like 15 miles, and they could have made that trail 3 miles long. They just wanted you to see the whole freaking
Yeah.
mountain. The hallucinations got so bad that I just started looking at the ground. At least it cut down the hallucinations. At that point, I was just seeing weird skinned out faces and stuff like that.
When we got to the top of Eldon, it was like you were like, I don't know, high or something. Like you were. It wasn't just hallucinations at that point. When you added in the altitude, you kept saying things like, I haven't been this high unless I was in an airplane," things like that. Like I thought you were gonna pass out up there.
Oh my God.
And then going down was hellish. It was not a steep trail, just like as in steep. It was boulder hopping going down. It was you're dropping 2 or 3 feet at a time. Yeah, luckily, my quads actually stayed with me. I hadn't blown my quads out, which was a very big plus. So I was able to fight going down. Um, and I think it's 3,000 feet. It took 3,000 feet going up over a 15-mile section, and then going down, you drop 3,000 feet in a 2-mile section. Uh, and it's just straight down, and it sucked. You're hopping on boulders. They've made some kind of halfway steps, but whoever made the trail up that mountain was evil. It was just brutal. And to think about going up that last year uh, would have been rough. I think it would have taken a while, but it was taking us, I think, 45 minutes per mile coming down that mountain.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we were about
Yeah.
40, 45 minutes per mile. It was that slow. Yeah.
Yeah, I had texted Ben and I was watching everybody come down it and I said, it looks like going up it, people are still doing their 2 miles an hour, but coming down, it's to go a mile and a half is taking people up to 3 hours. It looked really slow. And the videos I saw, it looked so gnarly. I heard a rumor on the way down there was some singing or what? Tell me more, Ben. What's going on the way down? Some singing,
I
perhaps.
think Tony hallucinated that Ben was singing on the way down.
Tony, was there some singing going on?
He does have a beautiful singing voice. He was very entertained going down. I was in no mood to do a song with you.
I had one goal, and that was to keep this dude awake. That was my one goal in all the singing.
Yeah, you get down as you're coming down and getting to that last aid station. The clock is just ticking. You're just on day 5 now, right? You just passed 120 hours. Tony, at what point do you go, holy crap, this is almost done, and you start feeling good, or maybe you never did? I don't know. At some point when you get down Eldon, are you like, dang, this is going to happen? Do you start getting emotional? Do you start feeling elated? What's the feeling when you start going, I can literally see the finish line?
Yeah, so finishing up coming down Mount Eldon, you get into the bottoms and it's pretty flat. but it's really rocky. Just a lot of boulders, and just it's not. They call it a trail, but it's the farthest thing I've ever seen from a trail. It's a goat path, and you get into Trinity Heights, which is the very last aid station, and I had never felt so horrible at the end of a race. Uh, I thought I would be absolutely elated to be there, and I kept thinking about it coming down. I was like, once we get to Trinity Heights, we're just going to blow on through. We only got 3.5 miles to go. We're gonna be finished. And there was always, like I said earlier, I never felt like I chased cutoffs. I felt like I managed them very well. But once we got to the bottom, I knew the race was done. I knew we had time to finish it. There was no way, barring breaking my leg and having the bone sticking out of the side of my leg. And I think at that point, I would have borrowed crutches. But uh, coming down into Trinity Heights, I had never felt so bad in my life. It was absolutely horrible. And Ben actually, he said, let's just take 10 minutes here. And golly, if I was ever going to quit, it was in that 5 minutes at Trinity Heights. It was horrible. So I sat down in a chair, and I don't know where it came from, but somewhere a blanket showed up and ended up over the top of my head. And so I just sat in the chair, and under this blanket, they just threw it over the top of me for what felt like hours, which Ben later said it was only about 10 minutes. So he rustles me up and said, all right, let's finish this. And, not only was I just feeling horrible from the climb down the mountain, but my stomach, I think it was just getting close to the finish. My body was like, we've done it. Great job. We're shutting down. You've done enough. And so everything went bad. I got super nauseous. I mean, I was fighting throwing up. I went through every last piece of toilet paper I had with me. It was just, I was in a bad way. So we ended up into Trinity Heights, and I just felt like crap, felt horrible. So after that 10 minutes, I felt, after that 10 minutes, I woke up and I was like, hey, I think reality really set in that we had done it at that point.
Yeah, we headed into Buffalo Park, and then we had a celebrity sighting. Do you remember that?
Yes. Let me hear about your celebrity sighting.
So it's super cool coming into after Trinity Heights. I think we're maybe a mile out of Trinity Heights. You go through Buffalo Park, if I remember right, and Buffalo Park. You can see people running that were way better shape than I ever thought I'd be. And one of the things that kind of in the back of my mind I'd always harbored hope for was I've seen other Cocodona videos where somebody was coming in early morning and Mr. Jim Walmsley would be running down the trail. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool to be up here and run into Jim Walmsley? And I'd already met some of the legends of the sport, earlier in the race. And so it's super cool to hang out and meet those kind of guys. But the one that really would have been neat was Jim Walmsley. So we're walking at this point. Running was pretty much done. And I look up the trail, and Jim, anybody who's ever seen Jim run, you could pick Jim's run out of a group of 1,000. He's got a very unique stride. And I looked down and I said, Ben, that's Jim coming at us. And sure enough, man, Jim comes up the trail. And he stops and he goes, hey, guys, are you finishing? I was like, yeah, I was finishing. So he stops and starts chatting with us. And he's running at us uphill doing like a 6-minute pace. And he's not even breathing. I mean, it was just like he's out for a Sunday stroll. No sweat, just not even panting. Me at an 8-minute pace, I'm borderline dying. But so yeah, he stopped and said, "Hey, congratulations!" Took a few pictures with him. Super nice guy. He didn't have to stop, which was pretty awesome. And so yeah, he stopped, chatted with us for a couple minutes. Gave us congratulations, a handshake, and a high five, and good job, go get it done. And so we parted ways and headed down the mountain.
And I got to give a shout out to Jim here because, yeah, he was so generous with his time. Like I took a bunch of pictures, and he encouraged Tony and stopped and talked, and he was just really, really cool.
Isn't that awesome? My buddy Eric ran into him at Black Canyon this year, and same thing. He's like, I'd still be chatting with him. He just took all the time in the world to just chat and hang out. Super nice.
I remember as soon as we said goodbye to Jim, Tony, you were like, "Hey, I think I'm gonna puke." I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you didn't puke on Jim."
Oh
Before that,
no!
man, we had to duck off into the outhouse at the Buffalo Heights there, and Ben actually came up, started knocking on the door. He thought I fell asleep in there, but man, I was feeling just super sick. Luckily, I had a couple of anti-nausea meds with me, so I took one of those, and that fixed the problem. And got me back feeling decent again. So yeah, he was glad I didn't puke on Jim while I was shaking his hand. But yeah, coming through Buffalo Park, I seen a drone up there. I did actually go back to the live stream, and you can't tell who we are, but I know it's me. It's me and walking through Buffalo Park there, and so I did see the drone. And then it wasn't too far past Buffalo Park. You actually get on the pavement, I believe, and then head into town. And I was still hurting pretty good. My feet were the worst thing. They were so swollen, not blistered, but just hurt. And so I was planning. I said, I did it. I finished. Not yet, but I'm going to finish, and I'm just gonna just get in. And so we got maybe I don't know, maybe half a mile out or so from the finish line. And
And your daughter came out and meet you too.
my oldest daughter had come up trail, and I had saved a beer for 3 years. It was a barrel-aged black barley wine from Anchorage Brewing, and the name of it was Suffer. And I knew I was going to run Cocodona at some point. So 3 years ago, I bought this beer, and I wrote
Oh
on it,
wow!
Cocodona 250. And I told my kids, I said, Cheyenne, you're in charge of having this open when I cross the finish line.
That sounds way better than a Coors Light or whatever. Was it Dan Green that was waiting for a Coors Light? That's way better. Way to go.
So she meets me up the trail about a half a mile, or up the road about a half a mile. And then I seen the live stream guy, where they follow
The
everybody.
calf is still blowing up at this point, or you're just not feeling it at that point.
Yeah, at that point, nothing hurt. And so I decided to jog it in. And at the time, I thought I was doing like a 6-minute pace running in, but going back on the live stream, I think it was closer to like a 14-minute pace. But darn it, I was running. So I was looking forward to the left on Birch. I bought 2 pairs of the Speed Goat 5s that I planned on doing the race in. So I had them on my shelf for 6-8 months, maybe a year, because I like the 5s. I knew they worked good for me. And on the pair I was going to wear into the finish line, on the left foot, I wrote left on Birch, so that I'd have something to look at when I'm getting tired and feeling like crap. So that last turn, that left on Birch, was pretty freaking cool. But I've been staring at that on my shoe for 120 miles, and yeah.
So you cross the line. Is there tears? I mean, what's your emotions? Just relief, tears, joy? What are you all feeling? I can't even imagine.
Um, it's indescribable. Uh, so much took place for me to get there, and so many people helped along the way, and to cross that finish line after dreaming about it for so long, so many years. It wasn't just a 5-day dream of running the race, and it was working up to doing that race. Every race I'd done for 5 years was to get me to that point. I knew I wanted to be there, and your brain is just so dang tired, but it's an indescribable feeling to cross that finish line after so many years, so many miles, blisters, sore muscles, running and training, and so much that other people had given. Uh, my wife for 220 miles was chasing me through the desert, chasing this staggering zombie who was having horrible hallucinations through the desert. Uh, she's not getting but a couple hours of sleep at night. Ben, he's pacing me 60 miles, I think, at that point, finish line. And it's just grateful to be there. Lucky to have the body to get me there. And just very, very, very blessed to be able to do that. To have the support of family to actually do it, because it's not just you're not training for a 5K where you go out and you run 2 or 3 miles every now and then. We're doing hours and hours and hours away from our family training runs. So my poor wife has listened to this obsession for 5 years, and for the last year being signed up for this race, she's listened to me talk about it. She's sat there and watched on the TV as I'm watching YouTube videos on Cocodona, West Plate's videos, and Sally McRae's videos, and Simon Gerard's videos, and everybody I'm pretty sure I watched every Cocodona video, and I watched all these guys go underneath that banner. And after coming across the finish line, I hugged my kids, and then my wife came up, hugged her. I think on the live stream you can see me do it. I give a thumb over my shoulder and I look up at the sign and I say, "Look where I'm at. Look where I'm at." I said, I'm here. I made it."
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. And Ben, were you at the finish line? Did you hang out for a while? Because you left pretty quickly. You said you were driving back.
So once Cheyenne came out to meet Tony, I hung back and let them cross together, and I kind of snuck my way over where I could reunite with the family.
Yeah.
I got the chance to kind of be a little bit away. I wanted to let Tony have some family time, and I snapped some pictures of the fam from my telephoto lens, because I wanted to capture those moments for Tony. But it was just really cool to see him get his buckle, and I think the main thing I was reflecting on at the very end was I think Tony, if I'm not mistaken, you finished with about 2.5 hours to spare on the final cutoff.
And 122 and a half hours. So folks, that's 5 days and 2.5 hours. Tony was out there.
And I just thought to myself, man, this man has not slept. I mean, other than that one sleep at Whiskey Row.
Whiskey Row, that's it.
I just don't think, I felt like 30 minutes or 40 minutes was the max that we could give him. And 2.5 hours is not a lot of time to play with. Anything can go wrong out there. And I felt like we pushed him so hard. There were so many times where he needed to sleep, and we were like, hey, not this one. It's going to be the next one. And I felt bad because I was like, hey, man, when we get toward the end, there's going to be hours of sleep. Like, trust me, you're going to be just fine. And it never materialized. And so when we got to the end, I think that was the thing that struck me the most. I just couldn't believe you got it done on so little sleep. It was really impressive, and I was just really happy for you.
Yeah. I told you, Tony, I mean, we were all rooting for you. I'm just so proud of you to do that and to really honor the back of the pack. And Ben, you did that last year too. I mean, you finished and you have quite the story. People have to listen to it. But Tony, you were just you were the back of the pack and you just pushed through, and my God, I don't even know how you did it. It's just absolutely amazing.
I couldn't have done that without him. My family was there, my wife, my kids. I couldn't have done it without any of them. Ben was absolutely instrumental in earning that buckle, and just fulfill a dream, a 5-year dream, a 5-year journey to get to that finish line. So,
Wow.
Thank you, Tony.
and he's going to sign up here in a few hours.
So, okay. So, questions for both of you. So, Tony, are you going back? You're going to go back, not next year. You going to do it again?
Not next year, but if you would have asked me at Trinity Heights, I'd have said I'm never going back to Arizona again. 30 minutes after I crossed that finish line, I was thinking next time.
Yeah, here's where I can gain a little time. Here's where I can gain some time. Yeah, I can do it faster next time.
Here's where I can do better. I think this year, I went through, there was 103 DNFs of everything else that was thrown in this year on top of years that you don't get. I'm extremely proud to have finished this year with the extra challenges thrown in. We don't do it to be comfortable. Comfort's a disease, I think. We're not made to be comfortable all the time. Definitely stepped up and made myself uncomfortable for multiple days.
Yeah.
But I'll be back. I'll be back.
You scratch that itch and then some. Hey, Eric, Eric had a good question for you. So I don't know what your plans are for the rest of the year. If you got any other races or you're focused on, different type of training, but what the heck? And Ben, this goes for you too. Like anything else you do that's not 250 miles do you look at it and go, meh, what's the point? Or what? How do you do something that's not 250 miles now with any kind of seriousness? Go ahead, Tony.
Each race has its own unique challenges. My next race is a 50K. And, the pacing is all different. And what you got to do for training is different. A 250-mile race, you're practicing more for time on feet and a lot of walking because unless you're in the front half of that group, you're not doing a whole lot of running. But each race is different. Each race is unique. Even after they just end faster, so like I ran, a couple of 50 milers and then stepped up to 100K. And then when I went back to my next 50 miler, it ended faster, but it was still a different race, a different experience. I hope that they still have intrigue because I don't know if I want to only do 200-mile races anymore. But yeah, so next I've got the Denali 50K, which is up here in Alaska. And then after that, I'm doing a little short 17-miler in August, and I don't have anything on my schedule after that. And but yeah, you just look forward to each race with different expectations, different outlook, and just enjoy the race.
Okay. Ben, how about you? I mean, have you done anything since last year's Cocodona? And
yeah, I didn't do a heck of a lot. I really took a lot of time for recovery. There was a lot of mental and emotional recovery after Cocodona last year. And I can't even remember if I hopped into a race in between. I may have. My memory escapes me. But one thing I knew, and I can remember driving home from Cocodona last year, I said to myself, I am coming back next year to do for someone else what was done for me. And that was a commitment I made to myself a year ago. And then it was like, Tony, if you're in, dude, I'm in. So I've made this year and kind of even just going forward a little bit more about helping other people. So I've been volunteering at races. I will be pacing a buddy at the Oregon 200 coming up in August.
Okay.
I have a 50K in August. And then as Tony alluded to before, if I can get my hot little hands to register for Cocodona in a few days, I will be registering for Cocodona, assuming that we don't crash ultra sign up. And then, all bets are off, right? I have this one race in August, but I'll get my coach signed back up and I'll get a bunch more races on the calendar and start getting really serious about training. And that's my plan as it stands.
And Tony, you're going to crew him if he goes?
Yes, I told Ben that if he got in, I'd head down and I would pace him.
All right. I told Ben, I said, if you sign up next year, I mean, I'll be a very slow pacer, but the slower sections, if you need a
Come on,
pacer, I'll be
guys.
down
Let's
there for the
go.
week.
Let's go.
I can fill water bottles. I can drive cars. I can help out. I'll be
Yeah,
there.
let's do it. Let's do
Let's
it,
do
guys.
it. Let's do it. I have no desire to sign up for it myself, but I'd be glad to help.
And Cocodona, there's something about Cocodona. Cocodona is a special race. Anybody who has had anything to do with it, who has run the race, whether they're first or whether they're last, Cocodona is special. And
Yeah.
anybody who's ever had anything to do with it, it definitely has a place in their heart. Uh, and it will have a special place in my heart
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about it. It's just hooks you in, and it's so well produced, and it's just like, and Ben, you talked about this in your podcast last year. It's just kind of this perfect storm of this beautiful area. It's the ultimate challenge. It's 250 miles, and you look at who is attempting it, and the crowds are just growing and growing. You had Courtney there this year, and it just keeps growing in popularity. I think it's here to stay. And
Yeah, and I think the best thing about it is the community. One of the greatest opportunities I had this year was I was lucid, and so I was able to go from aid station to aid station and see all these same people that helped me last year that were complete strangers. I kid you not. I walk up to, if you know this race and you've been at this race, you know who Tom Tie-Dye Guy is. I walk up to Tie-Dye Guy before the race starts, and I walk up and he goes, "Ben, I haven't seen this guy in a
wow.
year, and I wasn't even lucid the last time I saw him. I remember breaking down crying in his arms at Walnut Canyon, and he's just a total stranger who's like one of the most cool people ever.
Wow.
And Ruth, the masseuse, and I mean the lady that tapes your feet. I mean, just being able to like be like self-aware this time and go back and be like, hey, thank you so much for last year. I got to go do a big thank you tour. So the race draws a lot of the same volunteers every year, and that makes it special as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dylan Harris was out there filming the back of the pack this year, as opposed to previous year he did the chase. Ben said that he was following you quite a bit, and I saw that camera crew at the finish line. Do we want to talk about? We don't want to. We don't want to even say anything about that, or we'll just. Do you think you'll end up in the movie, or?
So last year, anybody who's followed Cocodona knows what the chase is. Dylan Harrison and crew did a fantastic movie documentary. I'm not sure what they're called when they're on YouTube. But he just did a great video. Well, this year they sent out an email right before the race that said, "Hey, we're going to be doing something similar, but we're following the back of the pack." And coming into Whiskey Row, I noticed a camera guy standing there, and I just thought he was one of the live stream individuals. And he's filming me, and he's filming the people I'm talking to and interacting with, and just kind of standing on the outside but videoing. And then he followed around a little bit, and you see some other live stream people following the runners. And then so I finished up what I needed to do at Whiskey Row, went and got a nap, and then got up, and Dylan himself was there, and I kind of got to talking to Dylan. He's videoing, and I said, "Hey," I said, figure out who he was. And after he told me his name, I said, "Oh, okay, I know what you're doing." I said, "It's awesome. You guys are out following the back of the pack." I said, "You can only watch Jim and Courtney win so many times before it kind of gets monotonous." I said, "It's really cool to watch the other 80% of back here in the back." And he goes, "Well, that's good because hopefully you'll be in it." And from Whiskey Row all the way to the finish, he was there at every aid station and talked to me and my family. And so we'll see if I make the cut to get into in his back of the pack, which I did ask him what it's called. I don't know. He never asked not to say anything, but I don't know how much he wants to give away.
Yeah.
But he's going to have another film that he's going to release later this year, and hopefully release it like he did the case.
Yeah, well, we don't need to give away any details. I just think everybody knew that he was there. He was following the back of the pack. Ben mentioned that he had his camera on you a few times, so that's pretty cool. We'll see if you make the cut, if you make the movie. I hope you do. But
it'll be fun. It'll be neat to run this race, to do this race, and then um, as much time as he spent around me, I would imagine that I'm seeing a fair amount in this film, and
yeah,
to have not only all the memories of it, but to have a video of it would be really cool.
forever
So sometimes
preserved
it
on
needs to be
film.
slow.
Yep, that's right. Yes, I was excited to hear they were covering the back. I thought everything is the front of the pack, and it's about time somebody followed the back of the pack.
Yep.
Wow. Hey guys, it's running late, so I'm gonna wrap this up pretty quick. But I'm just gonna do my one last question of 5 favorite pieces of gear, and you can both chime in, and maybe it's the gear you used. I got to do it for Graham Ward out in Ireland because he just loves hearing what people use and what they like to use. Tony, what's 5 pieces of gear then? Let's hit it from you first. What's your 5 favorite things you have when you're running?
5 favorite pieces of gear are gonna have to be my Garmin watch. Um, I love my Garmin. It does
Okay.
so much. I've used the Garmin Descent Mark III I, which is pretty much the Phoenix line, but it's also a scuba diving watch. So it's got the scuba diving capabilities on it. And that came in really handy, leaving Crown King when I took a wrong turn and it told me that I had left the trail. So I had to backtrack a little bit. Had I not had the Garmin watch, I would probably still be headed up the wrong road.
Nice.
Man, after that, the Solomon vest, that ADV 12 vest is amazing. It doesn't matter how much you put in it. It seems like there's always room for something else. Every time I look at it, I'm like, that thing is full, and I could shove more stuff in it. So that thing was super, super handy. Um, my That'd be number 2. Number 3, I'd say my Lecky poles. Having the glove where you could click in and out of the poles was super nice because I had the scabbard on the back where I could pull the poles out and just put my poles away and not use them. And but to have those on your hand where just kind of out of sight, out of mind was super super nice. And then the ones that have the straps, I will actually get blisters on my hands uh, and on my wrists and stuff from the straps if I use them for long ways. I never had a single hot spot or blister using the Leckies. It's just the way they fit was really nice. So that's definitely gonna be something that's in my bag forever. Uh, Number 4, I'd have to say my Kogala light. That light, super bright. It's like running with a landing craft light on your front. Um, and that thing was really nice. Have it low. I had a headlight as well. So if you're off the trail, be able to turn that on and be able to see off of the trail was kind of nice, not have to turn your whole body. But that Kogala just lights up the world in front of you. And number 5 would have to be my Speed Goats. Um, the shoes, they've been with me from my very first ultra all the way through, and they'll be probably on my next ultra. Uh, they've been great. They have great traction. They're comfortable. I can get them at a wide because I've got size feet, so they're wider feet. And yeah, they're just super comfortable and don't tear up my feet.
You should have had Carl sign those shoes. Did he sign any of your Speed Goats?
Had I been wearing them, I'd have definitely taken one off and had him sign it. But I think the one that I've got left on Birch written on, I think that one would be the special one to have Carl write on, to have him put his name on.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah.
I will quickly run through mine in no
Yes,
particular
Ben,
order.
let's hear
I do
yours.
love my Lakey poles as well. They're fantastic. I wear an Ultra Spire waist light that I swear by. It's fantastic.
All right.
Shoes are very individual to the person, but I love both the Topo Mountain Racer and the Ultra Venture. Whatever the latest version of both of those are my go-tos. And I don't know, is that 3? I've got a vest I'm not totally sold on. I may be switching to an Ultimate Direction vest coming up in Cocodona near you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. That outdoor research hat with the flaps on it that makes you look like the biggest dork in the world. You can't live without that out in the desert. So, I don't know if that's 5, but those are mine.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. I love it, guys. Before I sign off, let me just do one more. Give me one word that describes you as a runner. Ben, you go first.
Resilience.
Tony?
Persistent.
All right. All right. All right.
Keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. I love it. And then one word that describes you as a person. Ben?
Resilience.
Tony?
Persistent.
Same. All right, guys. Yeah, it's getting late. I gotta do the dogs. Ricky needs some more food and meds, and then we gotta go to bed here in
What is it,
Minnesota.
midnight out there, Joey? It's late.
Yeah, midnight something like that.
Hey,
so.
nice buckle, brother. Nice buckle.
Oh, there it is. Love that. Send me
My Cocodona buckle is on my belt.
I love it. I love it. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. And Ben, one of these days, I got to get you on here just to, tell people who the heck you are,
Yeah, why not, man? Maybe if I get signed up for Cocodona, we can talk about my training or something.
Let's do it. Let's do it. We'll get the three of us back together. All right, guys, I'll let you go. Thanks for joining me.
Yep.
A heck of a story. And take care out there. Thanks for representing the back of the pack, Tony.
It was great to talk to you, Joey.
Thanks, Ben.
Fellas, good night.
We don't do it to be comfortable. Comfort is a disease. Wow. What an epic achievement and what an awesome tale. Thank you, Tony and Ben, for sharing your stories. I hope you enjoyed it half as much as I did. And if you did, please do leave a rating or review. It helps grow the pod. And be sure to check out the show notes. I've got links to that Chasing Cutoffs episode with Tony and Ben's episode where he talks about his 2024 Cocodona experience. Well, that's it for now. Take care. Cheers. Keep running. Keep walking. As Tony himself says, keep moving forward. With enough persistence and resilience, you will cross that finish line.